I'm going to be a fan anyways. I'm going to go see these films. I'm going to watch. It's my pastime. So I might as well take like 10, 20 minutes out of my day and make a little video. And if it goes anywhere, it goes anywhere. But it's just, I'm going to be a fan anyway. So I might as well make content out of it because that's what I love doing.
Alright, so today I have with me Tim Callard, who is a video editor and just a guy I know from my neighborhood.
You've gone back for many years.
Oh, it's like a long time. Like, well, your mom taught Orchana ballet, like almost every other little girl in our neighborhood, I think. And then you taught my kids swimming lessons and coached water polo.
And even before I was coaching them, I was a kid at the pool.
Oh, that's true, yeah. It's really a long time. So I've known you for really, like, a really long time. And even though I've known that, like, as you've grown up, you got into making videos and then being a professional editor, we never really had a chance to sit down and talk about it.
Oh, and I've always wanted to talk about it with you.
Yeah, so it's really fun to sort of carve out a minute, despite some of the confusion this morning, to do that. So why don't you give us a bit more of a rundown, like where are you at now, what's going on with you? How about that?
So right now I work as a freelance video editor, and I mostly stick with WatchMojo. Okay. I don't know if you've heard of the YouTube channel.
Of course. I think everybody's heard of
the classic top
10s, yeah.
So that's like my base video editing job right now, but I also am very always open to doing more freelance stuff just on the side. So I'm also very passionate about doing my own recording. And so even though I'm like doing video editing for that, I love doing like my own creative stuff. And so I'm always open to doing stuff like that.
Very cool.
And so that's what I work right now doing. I work from home, so it's a pretty good schedule, and it's pretty lucky that I have the setup that I do at home.
Yeah, I want to talk about your setup afterwards, for sure. So how did you start? Like, what got you into video editing? What was your path?
So honestly, I think it's probably from my brother, my oldest brother. I have two brothers. Yeah. You know one of them, and then the older one you might not know as much, but my other brother Alex, he's just always been into film. Okay. And I think that's what really sparked that interest in me when I was younger. I've always been a creative person. I was like drawing when I was younger. And at school I was like doing videos as much as I can, and he was the one who kind of showed me movies when I was really young, and he got me into like really a lot of pop culture. Okay. And so that's when like when he was in high school and in John Abbott and in CJEP in college, he was like casting me as an actor in his student films. No kidding. Yeah. Okay. So I always had like the behind the scenes look when I was like as an actor in his films. So I always kind of got a touch of like what it takes to make film and media. And so I got to work like that behind the scenes, and then I kind of just sparked that interest, and I've started creating my own stuff ever since. Okay. All right, that's really cool. And then I know you studied like at CJEP you did. Yeah, at CJEP I finished on Abbott. I was in ALC Media. Okay, there you go. Yeah, that'll do it. All right, so that's sort of the technical end of a lot of learning stuff. And then how did you end up with WatchMojo? That I'm really curious about. So I still had to go through the whole process of applying and having interviews and stuff, but Alex's wife actually works for WatchMojo as well. Okay. And her sister is the WatchMojo lady, the girl who goes like, "Welcome to WatchMojo." Oh, yeah. Okay. So her and her sister both do voiceover for the channel, and so she recommended me to the company. And so I had an interview with them, and they liked my work process, and so luckily I got to start working with them, and so it's kind of fun. It's like a little bit of a family thing. Yeah, that's really cool. What's now that I'm thinking, what's like a typical project timeline? So it really depends. I've transitioned over the years, because I've been working there for about 3.5 years now, and so it's basically it's switched. Like obviously media is growing and it's switching day by day, so you don't know what's gonna trend the next day. And so I started out just doing the regular top 10s, and now I've kind of transitioned more to doing shorts, actually. Oh, okay. So there's still the top 10 videos, but instead of one longer form, like 10-minute, 15-minute video, I'm editing probably still 10 entries, but it's basically one entry is one video. Okay. And so I'm exporting like 10 separate projects for one video. So it's pretty interesting how now I'm working more towards like Snapchat, Instagram Reels, TikTok stuff. Yeah. But it's pretty cool how it's changed a little bit, and I'm like it's always growing. That's crazy. Being different. And what happens? You have like an
editorial team, or there's?
So I haven't really talked to many of the other freelancers, but I have my manager who uploads. Basically, I get videos uploaded to me on Mondays.
Okay.
And then by the end of the week, the Monday after, I just have to upload my projects for the week.
Okay, so they're going to be like, we want you to do this top 10 or this project
exactly.
or whatever.
And since I've been there for a while, they give me a couple videos a day now. But when I started out, I was just doing like one video a day.
Okay.
And the longer ones took more time because they're more for YouTube, and so they took a bit longer to edit. They were probably about like 3-4 hours to do.
To do like a 10-minute.
To do like a full 10-minute video. But I get given all the voiceover, and they give me a script. So they basically say what clips to use for movies, and for what clips to use in the TV shows or whatever the top 10 may be, and then I basically just follow the script for that. So let's say an hour and 10 minutes. Take this clip and put it in this voiceover, and they are open to being like, if something doesn't fit, I can change it out because I know some of the scenes and.
So you have a bit of creative freedom.
A little bit, but not a ton. But it's still it's very structured because they want all the videos to be the same, pretty much. Right? The same style and the brand. So those ones took a bit longer to do, but the shorts those take a lot less time. But I get to do more, so it balances out the same. So
to keep it interesting.
Exactly.
Very cool. Very cool. So just on the sort of technical side, what is your setup actually? Like what are you working, like what's your machine, what's your setup, what's your what tools and whatever?
So when I first started, I was like still have it, and I was doing my laptop, and I still use my laptop, but I have my monitors now. And a lot of people say that this is pretty different, but I'm just so used to it now. But I use my trackpad still on my laptop.
Really?
Yeah. So it's very, very different, and I've tried using a mouse, and I don't mind it for bigger projects for like Photoshop. I use my mouse, but for my editing, I think I've just gotten so used over the years using my trackpad that I'm so quick with it.
Like, I get maybe because I'm like older and I grew up with laptops with the
little dot
ThinkPad dot, or even I think my first one had a trackball.
Yeah. So
I can't work without it. Like I work off my laptop too with an external monitor.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could. Even when I'm out and about with my laptop, I pretty much always have a mouse.
Yeah.
With me,
So I think it's just from when I was starting just working on my laptop and making personal projects. I just got used to doing it, and then over the years, I used my laptop when I was doing like early videos.
Okay.
Just when I was only doing like a couple a week, and then when I started getting more projects, that's when I invested in like a monitor, and then now I have 2 monitors set up actually. So I have like my editing on one of my monitors, like my software, and then on the other monitor I have my script usually, or like the clips I need to download off of my drive.
Okay.
And then my main laptop one I usually just keep blank, but depends on what I use. But the monitors help so much, just having a bigger space to look at, and it really is a game changer. Now I try and go back, and if I ever I'm on the go and I need to make a quick change, it's so tiny it seems.
It's so annoying. Yeah.
So it's changed over the years, but I'm still sticking with the laptop, and I'm probably due for a new one pretty soon. But I'm gonna run it to the ground as much as I can and get the most out of it.
Well, I mean, honestly, even it's funny because a couple years ago I bought one of the first Apple M1 laptops, and it blew me away. And it's maybe 4 or 5 years old.
That's the one I have now. I got it right when it came out. I have the one with the light bar.
Freaking, I hate that thing.
I hate it too. Mine glitches out now too,
it's
and
so bad.
The newer ones don't have it. So obviously it was a change that they
and no ports.
No, exactly. So mine's about 4 or 5 years old now too. I think it was 2019 I got my laptop.
Yeah.
It still works great, but I'm probably due for a new one. But
yeah, so mine, I actually what we're recording on right now, if you look at it after, the screen is somewhat wrong with it, and I'm still working off it, and I just found somewhere that's not the Apple store to fix it.
Okay.
Because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I was pricing out the new ones, and it's no small investment, so it really has to be like a game changer when you're gonna invest $4,000 or $5,000 in a laptop, which is what it is.
It's gonna have to I want it to last me at least 5-10 years even, and this one's been about 5, and I want to really look into it and make sure you're getting the right deal.
And it has to be it's not. It has to be the way I try and think about it. It has to be a significant time save.
Exactly.
Things that So I noticed on mine, for example, like rotoscoping on larger projects is really glitching, and that's partly maybe because I'm still a Premiere guy and After Effects, so it maybe still doesn't run super smooth all the time.
So I actually use Final Cut.
Really?
So it's a fun little comparison now. I'd like to know your experience on Premiere as well, because I can tell you mine on Final Cut.
Yeah. So I have always just been Premiere. I don't know why. I think partly I was introduced to it because through my other job I had access to the Creative Cloud and everything, so I didn't, have to start out with a subscription. And then I did, there's, like for any software, there's a ton of tutorials and whatever, so I'm basically self-taught on all of this. So my experience is that at the beginning, when I first got this computer, it wasn't the Adobe apps weren't really designed to run on the ARM architecture, the M chips or whatever.
Yeah.
And since then, it's gotten a lot better and a lot smoother. All the like dynamic link stuff between like.
That's the one thing I do agree with the Adobe suite is that they all do work so well together.
Yeah, it does. Every so often I'll open a project and it'll be like, we can't find any of your linked resources. I'm like, oh, and you just have to go find them. They're always there. And I do find certain things like, and I can't tell, because I don't have experience, I never tried Final Cut. I've never even tried DaVinci. So I don't know, what would really run better, because I feel like some things are just resource intensive. Like if you're gonna, rotoscope, and sometimes even though they're not like super effects heavy, but I've done hour and a half sort of like training or talking head videos, but if you want to rotoscope a certain section or whatever, it takes a lot of juice to do that. So I have run into problems. I would say probably the rotoscoping is the one thing that's caused me the most trouble. Other things that because you worked probably in school with Premiere, right?
So yeah, when I was in school, we pretty much only used Premiere because all the computers have the Adobe suite. And a couple times I used it at school when I was editing, but a couple times I'd ask my teacher on the down low if could I just use Final Cut, and they understood that that's what I used. And I think I started using that honestly because I was used to, when I was really young, I would use iMovie, and iMovie is basically it's like a really condensed version of Final Cut almost.
Yeah.
And they're both Apple.
It's a bit like GarageBand Logic Pro, right?
So it pretty much, the exact same. So they're both Apple, and so I think I kind of just got I got used to doing iMovie, and so I slowly transitioned over to Final Cut. And I think that's also because my first computer was my brother gave me his old computer, and he had bought Final Cut on it. Yeah. So that's how I kind of just started teaching myself with it. But then in school, I was thankful enough that I got to learn Adobe.
Yeah.
So it was just good to know. And then I've used DaVinci a little bit, not a ton, but it's I'm able to use it a little bit. Yeah. But the thing I find the most confusing, I don't understand why they do this, is I'm so used to all the shortcuts now in Final Cut because I've been using it for so many years. But just one as simple as just the blade, just to cut your clips. Yeah. On Final Cut it's B for blade, but on Premiere it's C for Premiere it's C for cut.
Yeah.
So it's just that alone. I switch over to Premiere and I need to tell myself to get used to all the shortcuts again. Yeah. So
or you have to remap them, which takes forever.
Another thing too is I think if you're working for a big company, I think the suites definitely are the better investment because you can buy more for your employees. Yeah. But if you're just doing personal editing, I'm a freelance editor, so I could do editing for multiple different companies. Yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of subscriptions.
Oh my god.
If there's a choice between a subscription and a one-off payment, I usually do one-off payment. Same thing with Photoshop actually. So I learned Photoshop in school and I love Photoshop. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great software, but I use a software called Affinity. And I love Affinity, and that's also a one-time payment. So I did my research on the two, and they're pretty similar. Photoshop has a little bit extra, but for what I need to do, just basic graphic design, I use Affinity. And
100%. It's crazy. You can get if you're still a student, right? You can get all of Apple's, you can get Final Cut, Logic Pro, and something else.
So that's what I got when I got my computer.
$300 or something.
So when I got my computer, I was a student. Yeah. So I got the student deal, and it was I just bought all three of them. The other one's Motion.
Oh yeah.
And that works as well. So it's kind of like its own little Final Cut suite.
Yeah.
They work compatible together, but I think they really nailed the Adobe suite. They all work so well together, dragging projects in and out from each other, and
I think, you know, the Adobe suite, it ties in nicely with some newer tools that I'm not really familiar with, but things like Figma and some of these other ones. So I get why. And, you know, I think bigger productions, unless you're in movies and you're using whatever, Avid or something, one of these like crazy that, you know, no independent video editor is ever going to use.
Yeah.
But I think that, I could see it if I was in a position where I definitely was like either starting again or had to really decide on the shell out, I would avoid a subscription.
Yeah.
Like, unless again I was working even as a freelancer, as part of a team where everybody's in those platforms, and then you're like, all right, but, you know, you don't really have much of a choice. But I'm assuming like Final Cut is like, because it's an Apple product, it runs nicely. All those software runs like
definitely.
Yeah. So. I wanted to ask you, one of the things I've been thinking about so I've been now editing videos for about 5 years, and again, mostly kind of podcast style or tutorial stuff, but I noticed even then that being an editor kind of changed how I watched like TV and movies a little bit.
Totally.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, for sure. So even now, like I'm a huge movie fan, and I love all things movies, and I think that's why I'm in the business. Honestly, movies are my passion. I probably go to the cinema honestly like once a week. I see every new movie that comes out in theaters. I even do, just in my own time, I do reviews and I do movie news on TikTok.
I've seen some of those.
Just for fun, because I always tell myself like, it's all about just content, in my opinion. It's all about being accountable, and it's just about consistency.
Yeah.
So I always tell myself, I'm gonna be a fan anyways. I'm gonna go see these films. I'm gonna watch. It's my pastime. So I might as well take like 10, 20 minutes out of my day and make a little video. And if it goes anywhere, it goes anywhere. But it's just, I'm gonna be a fan anyway. So I might as well make content out of it, because that's what I love doing. But no, definitely, since over the years, I've definitely noticed that you see the kind of behind the scenes technical side a little bit, and definitely one thing, it kind of stays on that path. But I've noticed now over the years, whenever I watch a horror movie specifically, I don't really get scared much anymore. They don't really shake me the same way, because I always think like, oh, it would have been so. I'm always telling myself, it's so interesting how they would have shot that, or. Right. I imagine what like the big killer or the actor is just sitting on set off screen when it's not on camera. So definitely, I think it really affects just editing, and you notice the different styles, and especially with different directors, I notice you can see their different filmmaking styles for sure if you really are able to have the eye for it.
Yeah.
So
I think for me, the thing I in the last while noticed more is I really am captured, or my attention really goes to like really interesting editorial choices, or you know, someone does like some kind of technique or cut that I haven't seen before. Like, what was I was watching last night on Netflix, I think it's called Breaking, with John Boyega in it, and he's like, it's based on a true story of some vet who like got his disability payments screwed up, and he like threatened to blow up a bank and whatever, but there's like a scene where he's in the bank with his hostages, and it's kind of shot kind of from the side of him, and then it pans and just seamlessly to like sort of the scene where it's like what's the word I'm looking for? The inciting incident where he's like getting all this crap at the Veterans Affairs office, but just this pan of him from being like in this power situation of being the hostage taker to suddenly he's this powerless guy in like this dull gray office. Just obviously there's a cut, and but what I try to do is not let my head get caught up in that too much. Yeah. Unless it's bad, and then I'm like, oh, what the hell?
Because then it kind of takes you out of it, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think the most effective editing is the editing you don't notice.
Yeah.
So if there's so many, like, see so many action movies now that are just there's every half a second sometimes there's an edit, and that sometimes that can get distracting. It really depends on the context of and what the content is in the video. But I always say, like, our job is to not be noticed.
Yeah. I remember thinking about that a lot when you're bringing up action movies and I'm sure this has been rehashed to death, and it's not new either. But if you compare, like, the first Daredevil series on Netflix, like the first one that came out, with Iron Fist.
Definitely.
Right? Like, you could tell, you know, Daredevil in the fight scenes even had some long shots and stuff like that. And in like Iron Fist, they were using so much editing to hide the fight that the main character couldn't, like, the actor couldn't fight. And it does, like, a choppy fight scene is, can really...
I agree. It definitely takes you out of it, even disorienting sometimes. And I'm a big fan of, they have, I don't know if you've seen 1917.
Yes. Oh, wow.
So
yeah.
I love those one-er type shots. Those are, like, some of my favorite shots, because I find you really need to, it really takes a lot of planning to do these shots. And that whole movie it's made to look like one shot, but they say they only cut very, very few times, but all the cuts are hidden.
Yeah.
So they make it look like it's one shot the whole movie. I'm a big fan of that because that's really creative, and it also I'm a big fan of the one-er shot just because you have to really move through the space and without cutting anywhere. So
it can be so dramatic too. You know, like that's the other thing that I love thinking about in editing is this idea that you can, you know, regardless of the script and the cinematography and all that stuff, like, you can make choices that set an emotional tone. Like, I don't know, did you watch The Bear?
Yeah.
All right, so there's, in the second season, I think, when Richie goes to, like, that fancy restaurant and he spends a week there, and by the end...
Pretty much the whole episode is, like, he's barely talking, too.
I know, and then it ends with, like a real close-up on his, I think, like, on his lapel.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it really just takes into, like, he has moved into this, like, instead of being, like, the lazy, stupid, annoying cousin, he has moved into this space of being a professional.
And that whole episode is a complete character change, like...
Yeah, which, one of the things I loved about that show was, like, the way the characters, just that, the character studies in them. But I remember that one jumping out to be like, this was just, like, it's just like a zoom, right? Like a pan and a little zoom in on this guy, and nothing fancy, just like the collar of his jacket, the lapel of his jacket.
And all the other episodes, he's been just kind of dressed normally. He's been the washed down guy, and so for sure, I completely agree.
Forks, right? Because he spends a whole bunch of time polishing forks.
So that editing in that whole show, I think, is absolutely incredible. I think it was the first episode of, I think it was in season 3. But it was basically like, I think it was basically the whole, like, it's just these crazy shots of food, and it was almost like an art piece, like a short art piece. So I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about.
I do.
But I think there was, like, barely, very, very few lines in it. Yeah. And it was just such a beautiful story, and it just shows how story can be told through editing. And sometimes you don't even need voiceover, or you don't need a story being told. Sometimes it's in the edit that it's all visual, that you can be told through the edit, so...
Actually, we stay on that show because you're right. It's so many. There's another episode in season 3 when the sister's giving birth.
Yeah.
And it's like most of the episode is just these really close shots of the sister and the mom. And the mom, like, if you know the show, she's a nutcase.
Yeah.
Totally. Like walking trauma situation for the whole family. But then you have, and it was like jarring almost, these like really tight shots on them, and it made this really intimate, emotional conversation. So I love, what I like that, you know, since I've gotten into editing is, you know, not, sometimes, like you said with the horror movies or sci-fi movies, I'm also like, well, how did they, you know, do this or whatever, you know, especially when you know it's been practical. But sometimes instead of taking me out of it, it brings me like a whole extra level of appreciation to be like, wow, they made really interesting choices that really make the story better.
Definitely.
And I love that about editing.
It's movie magic, honestly.
Yeah, 100%.
It really is, and it's all about the planning of it, and it's just it really is. It's a real craft, and it's really impressive.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the personal stuff that you do. Like, do you have creative projects going on? What?
So I'm always kind of. I always
you
have
said something
ideas.
about TikTok before.
Yeah, so I always have ideas. So that's a personal project that I work on pretty consistently. Is I do movie reviews. Mm-hmm. I do movie news. I talk about the box office numbers sometimes because those are always changing and they're fun to talk about. Right. And like it's fun that right now we're kind of making a bit of a recovery over the years because since COVID. The theaters took a big hit, and so now they're slowly trying to get back to the normal numbers. But so I do videos like that, just in my own time, just talk about movie news, and then I always do freelance work on the outside. So I've done work for real estate companies, doing like basically house editing tours, and I've done work editing podcasts, and I've worked with landscaping companies. So
do you shoot too for them? Or?
If they want me to shoot, I'll shoot. Definitely, I love having the eye to put my own creative spin on it. The podcast I've just edited, and then with the landscaping companies, I've gone with them, and I got to shoot. Luckily with them, so I get the drone out, and
I've seen some of the stuff you've done with the drone. It's really fun.
Yeah, those are super fun. So for me personally, a lot of people aren't like this, but if I ever shoot something myself, and I think it's because I'm an editor, I'm very strict for me just about editing my own stuff. I've always wanted to edit my own stuff, and one day whenever I make my own movie, I'm definitely gonna edit my own video as well. And that's my big passion. Is I always have ideas, but I really want to get together a real film. Just to say I made at least just one.
Yeah.
And then you gotta start somewhere. So you gotta make one, and then that's why I have so many ideas. But you gotta just focus in on one and just do it, and then the future ones will come after. So
I should point you to you may already know him, but so you're my second interview. I interviewed last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, a guy named Eric Dubois, who he went to school with like Laura Reed and and Ben Mummy.
Yeah,
but he's also a freelance editor. But he like wrote, directed, shot, edited like an hour-long feature called Infinite Light. It was on Prime.
I'll definitely check that out.
It's on Tubi now. I don't know if you've seen that one. I'll send you the link later. And I was really impressed with, he financed it himself. He did everything, and I was really impressed with like how he could do basically a sci-fi movie without making it seem like lame. Because if you are going to do special effects, for example, and you don't have the budget to do them right, sometimes even when you do have the budget to do them right, they suck.
I agree.
I've seen it in some of even the Marvel movies where clearly they have the money to do everything, and some of those super CGI fight scenes, you're like, that guy looks like a cartoon.
Definitely.
So I'm gonna send you the link to his movie. It's worth watching, and I think you'll really appreciate because the storytelling is great, and he, what someone can do as part of a. Excuse me, that's really. I don't know. Zoom in on that after it's flying out of my mouth. Like what someone can do as a passion project, just with like I think he had like 3 or 4 actors maybe, and
really that's why I definitely think people can get caught up in the idea of like in order to make a film, you need the big budget, you need the actors, you need the big set pieces, and you really don't, honestly. And like even our phones now today have the quality of like it's really incredible what we could just walk outside.
It's really amazing. I found with the phone I have now, right? So that's what is it, the 15 Pro or whatever. Yeah. Like if in good light, like no, it's not an Alexa or one of those. It's not. I'm not going to shoot like a theater movie.
Exactly.
But like for something that you're going to put on YouTube, if you're conscious of how you're going to film it, the quality is just ridiculous.
If you know where you want to shoot, and you just want to make a short film that's going to go on YouTube, or it's really like you just got to go out and do it. Honestly, like we have the technology now that
some of it's so accessible.
That's why I always say like if you have an idea, like just go and do it, because we have like it's cameras like I used to have to buy film and
and now you've got your phone, and even if you need just like the accessibility of even decent microphones or other things, like it's all doable on a scale that like wouldn't have been possible 10 years ago.
Exactly.
And I think that's really exciting for people who have a creative vision. And I mean it's obvious that we see that. Look at how something like TikTok has exploded.
Oh, definitely.
Right? It's crazy, and that would never be possible without decent phones.
Yeah.
Cheap mics. Like
sometimes you're even on TikTok and you can see a full short film that someone's made.
I know. And like you look at the quality of the work, like just how it's filmed. Some of the editing I see on TikTok is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like just amazing. Like people get so creative with some of them.
Well, even talking about like software, like editing software, is going back to that. Honestly, like if you're using your phone like on TikTok and editing, like CapCut, honestly, it's like if you're using it on your phone, it's a really good software for just your phone.
Yeah, I'm really not familiar with it. I probably should get familiar. I've never used it really, but when I look at what people say they've done or see some tutorials,
they also have a lot of good default edits too for people who might not have the full knowledge. Mm-hmm. That they can basically take a song and it will like the software will edit it for you, and there's so many different AI tools now.
Yeah.
And, like even with like doing putting subtitles in, you can just do that. But honestly, like I've used CapCut to like drag for my TikToks. I actually edit them on my phone.
Okay.
Because I film them on my phone, so I could. There's a couple that were a bit longer that I've transferred over to my computer. But it's just so much easier for me to I finish recording and I can just drag it to the parts because it's not crazy. There's nothing like crazy edits that I'm doing.
Right.
But it's honestly like it really is super super easy to do on your phone now too. Even for people who might not have the big laptop with the big software, like you could still edit your own films on your phone.
Yeah, for free or almost free.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's crazy. And this is another one that I thought was worth talking about for a minute is like, it seems every industry that you look at right now, the last year and a half or so, is AI this, AI that, and what's happening. And my experience so far, and even just like last week, Google just announced their
the Google VO3.
Yeah.
Have you seen some of the example videos?
Yeah.
It's a little creepy.
Yeah.
It's impressive, but it's a little what's the word there?
Yeah. It's close, but not quite. But my experience so far with things like AI tools is that they just make some parts of my job as an editor easier. I don't feel threatened, or the kinds of projects that I'm involved in are ones where I find that often as an editor, I'm often involved at different stages, not just the editing stage.
Yeah.
So for some of my clients, it might help them in like if I'm ultimately going to be editing a training video, for example, I'm often still involved in the like pre-production of like helping institutions like bigger or government organizations or bigger customers figure out how to take whatever they need to say and actually learn how to say it, and then all the editing. But I find things like even Premiere, I don't know if Final Cut has the like remove filler words.
Yeah.
And just like
it's wild.
You don't have to watch the whole damn thing and cut every It does it for you. And that I think is great.
So kind of like a Final Cut is just incorporated as well. AI transcribes your videos.
Yeah.
And you still have to scrub through it because sometimes it might not be perfect, but it's pretty good how great it can get.
Yeah.
And I'm completely with you though. I agree. I think it's a great thing. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something personal. There's a personal touch to videos and to content creation that I think that even though it's been like since two years ago, AI was like this crazy it still was pretty cool then, but it's crazy how much it's evolved just in 2 years, and it's even like more scary how it's going to evolve in the next 5 years, 10 years. So like just the progress it's made in 2 years is insane.
It really is.
I still think if even how crazy it gets and even how realistic it gets, there's still going to be something there that I think people are just subconsciously know what's real. Mm-hmm. And I think there's just like, especially for video, audio is a different thing. Audio can get pretty scary now. It can get pretty scary on what people might like. You can hear something online that they've never said, but for video specifically, I think it's definitely you're definitely gonna start like you have an eye for it.
Yeah,
and I think that people are still going to appreciate even more so now that everything's going to start transitioning to being like what's real and what's fake. Mm-hmm. I think people are going to have an appreciation for things that are actually created by a real person more so in the next couple of years than now, because people want something real.
Yeah.
like you go to the movies because it was made by someone. It was someone's passion,
and someone's vision and story to tell.
Even going to like people's wise theater is still such a big Broadway's still going strong. And people like seeing something real and live, and so I think it's great for the tools, and I love that we have all these tools now at our accessibility. But definitely, I think it's going to be your content creation isn't going anywhere.
No, and I think like you're saying, you know, if you think about the private clients you've worked with, you're freelance like a landscaper or a realtor, like it's all well and good that they're going to have all the AI tools at their disposal, but they're not going to have time. They're already, you know, running a business and doing the job of the business. They have already a million hats to wear. They aren't going to have the time and space to learn that. They're still going to need somebody to walk them through, you know. And like, you know, if you're doing like a video tour of a house, like you can't AI generate that.
And I think too, still, all the AI videos and pictures, they have a look to them, and they all like so many companies now have been using AI to create like an ad for them, and it just, in my opinion, it kind of just like sometimes it depends if they get it really good, but it can look a little cheap sometimes, and it's like. If you have like
hire an illustrator.
Just for example, my brother saw a billboard. I think he was he was away for work a little while ago, and he saw a big billboard on the street, and he said it was so obvious that it was AI because there was a part of the writing on the character's shirt was like all jumbled lettering, and he's like, if you have the accessibility to make like a billboard, why wouldn't you want to put like a piece of art basically up there, like your own creation of your ad, like use your creativity to make an ad for your.
And the cost of that in the cost of the whole campaign to hire somebody to do it properly is probably even then not that significant.
Exactly.
Right? You know, if you're putting up big billboards and all that, like the cost of a graphic designer or an artist to actually do that, the savings of using Sora or whatever, it's not a significant savings.
Yeah.
So it's somebody cheaped out and also didn't do their quality control because
exactly.
You know,
I completely agree.
I was just gonna say I just used 11 Labs for a project that I'm working on because somebody flubbed a couple of lines, and like the presenter, and so instead of having them get all set up and re-record and everything, I cloned the voice.
Wow, yeah, it worked well.
Labs, and it is indistinguishable.
It's wild, right?
Yeah, I gave 2 minutes of that person talking, threw it in.
And 2 minutes.
And I probably could have done less. And it was perfect. So, I mean, now I don't have the sync up with their face, so I just have to change kind of what's on the screen for that part. But, like, man. So, for me, that kind of thing, I felt comfortable because it was something they had already said. Just got screwed up. Like, because you could then, now I could make them say anything I want. Yeah. Right?
That's when you ride the line of how it can be used as a tool versus how it can be used like unethically.
Yeah. But for me, I was like, you know what? It's going to be a real pain in the butt to get that person back on camera, you know, just recording. And so it was really, really quick. So that's why I try and kind of think about it in that sense, that this is a practical tool as an editor to fix an error, not to like, you know, just completely. Because you could, theoretically, there are people who I think do this already. It's like you could clone your own voice and then, you know, I don't know, get ChatGPT to generate a script for you and plug it in and then record that, and you've got a podcast that you never said.
Yeah.
But like, again, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like you're gonna run. I feel that that's gonna run thin. You know, I feel like it would be an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm with you. I think once the video AI especially gets to a point where it's able to create a full movie, I'm interested because I think that is a really interesting experiment. But like I said before, I think it's going to come down to, it's not ever going to get to the point where you need to have someone's passion behind something.
I think you're also, the thing we haven't seen yet is, you know, if you think about what makes art, right, is there's like a few different things, but one of the important things about what makes art is novelty.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it'll never be that way, but as we stand right now, the sort of large language model type AI, there's nothing new, right? In the sense it's like, it's been trained on things and it combines things based on prompts or however it works. but you're not going to get, French Impressionism in the 1880s equivalent, or suddenly, or Picasso, like that kind of like completely new vision of something.
Yeah.
At least not at this stage.
I think so too.
You're just getting a version of what already exists, right?
Yeah.
So,
but to play a little devil's advocate there, I just think there's so like it's art has evolved, and so I think that there's definitely been some people who have grown and have come out like, and our art has changed, and it might not be paintings and it might not be kind of that art style, but art has evolved in such a different way that I think there's new frontiers now for people to experiment with art in.
Oh yeah, I gave two painters as examples, but that's not. That's not the limit for me.
Exactly.
It is more to say like